Oh gosh. I'm so sorry that I'm late. I was watching the news. I want to talk about Terry Pratchett's Guards, the 8th book in the Discworld series, if we're reading chronologically, which, for this read-along, we are. So I have sat down with some hot chocolate that I am desperately hoping I do not spill on my collector's edition books, and we're gonna get into it. Terry Pratchett's Guards is the 8th book in our chronological read-along of the Discworld series, and it is also the first book in the City Watch collection. Today, I will be giving you a summary of Guards, maybe to just refresh your memory or to just kind of give you an overview of what the book is about. Then I'm going to dive into my thoughts on Guards. I'm going to talk about a few things, specifically just the way that it approaches law enforcement, and what else am I talking about today? I have 16 pages of notes to go through, so this is a bit of a long one. I'm going to summarize Guards, and then I'm going to talk about law enforcement, systems of government, and human complacency. So I hope you came here for some super riveting content. Once I'm done with my extremely exciting thoughts, I'm going to get into your thoughts because this is a read-along, and that means I am participating in it with all of you. So several people gave me their thoughts on Guards previously in discussion posts here on the channel. I usually put those up in my community tab on the channel, and I have compiled all of those, given my own thoughts and responses to those, as well as a star rating to Guards that is brought about by votes that everyone has given to the book. So we'll dive into all of that in this potentially very, very lengthy video, because this is, let's get into the summary of Guards. A scheme in Ankh-Morpork is underway. A cult is plotting to bring the city back to the dark ages of 1640s England by unseating the Patrician and putting a king in his place. Naturally, the best way to do this is to summon a dragon and then have someone slay that dragon so that that person can be crowned king, as is a perfectly viable way to have someone elected as a leader of a city-state. Their first attempt at this causes the dragon to appear only for a brief instant. They realize they're going to need quite a bit more magic in order to be successful at this. Meanwhile, Carrot, who I think will end up being many people's favorite character in this book, is told by his father, a dwarf, that he is in fact not a dwarf. Very shocking, given that he is a incredibly tall human man. He goes to Ankh-Morpork after his father sends him away, and he joins up with the City Watch. He actually does a really, really good job. He arrests the leader of the Thieves Guild. Unfortunately, the Thieves Guild is permitted to operate. As some of you may recall from some of the previous books, the Patrician likes to maintain a very delicate balance in the city in order to keep things running smoothly, and arresting the leader of the Thieves Guild is not part of maintaining that delicate balance, so some trouble is underway. The Patrician, in response to this, commands the captain of the watch, our titular, that's not, he's not Guards. I mean, I guess it's kind of titular because he is a guard. The Patrician commands Sam Vimes to speak with Carrot and to deal with this situation, because Carrot has now upset the balance the Patrician has been maintaining in the city for so long. And of course, the leader of the Thieves Guild is permitted to go free. So Vimes goes out to find Carrot. He finds him in a tavern where Carrot has essentially been trying to arrest virtually everybody in there. Not long after speaking with Carrot and finding him in the tavern, people are incinerated in front of them, and they immediately go and speak with the Patrician about this and inform him that they believe a dragon is on the loose in the city and is posing serious problems. Obviously, as dragons are wont to do. The Patrician just kind of waves them away, doesn't really seem to be all that concerned about this matter. I got a hint that the Patrician actually was somewhat concerned, but didn't want to raise the alarm over something that he wasn't 100% certain about. The next thing that Vimes does is he goes to Lady Sybil Ramkin's house, and he speaks with Sybil, who is a breeder of dragons, although they are small dragons, and he just kind of talks to her about the nature of dragons and who this big one might be, looks at her own dragons, including a very small one. On the way away from her house, he sees the dragon again, and this time around the dragon is wreaking havoc and just about everybody sees it. This time the Patrician cannot deny it, and so he puts a reward out for the slaying of the dragon that is terrorizing Ankh-Morpork. Later on, members of the Watch are watching the sky trying to find the dragon, and unfortunately for them, the dragon isn't in the sky just yet. It takes off from a tower nearby and just spews flames everywhere. Vimes is injured but rescued by Carrot and taken to Lady Sybil Ramkin's house, where she tends to his injuries in a classic wounded soldier trope. Pause for romantic music. There they talk a little bit more about the dragons, but eventually an angry mob comes to Sybil Ramkin's house, accusing her of being the reason why they are all suffering at the hands of this gigantic dragon who is burning everything to the ground and killing people. Vimes disperses the crowd, and then Lady Sybil gives him a small dragon that has taken a liking to him, named I really thought I could remember it. Hold on. Good Boy Bindle Featherstone, whom he renames to Errol. Errol is going to prove to be quite useful in finding the dragon, although it turns out not to be all that hard given that the dragon is on their roof and then takes off after a resounding noise is heard in the distance. The dragon pursues this sound, and it turns out to be some guy on a horse who's there to slay the dragon. Guy on the horse successfully slays the dragon, although the dragon just kind of disappears as soon as the blade touches it. This guy is now to be crowned king. A coronation is scheduled, the Patrician is arrested, and it seems like the city is saved from the dragon. If you are just as confused by what happened as I am, that's kind of the point. With the help of Errol, Vimes investigates the site of the dragon's supposed death. He obviously does not believe that this dragon is actually dead, just like you almost definitely do not believe the dragon is definitely dead. After all, if you have my edition at least, there's a dragon on the cover. I think actually almost every edition has a dragon on the cover. I don't think there's one that doesn't. It'd be kind of weird if the dragon was just gone now, right? While Vimes is there, lightning strikes the tower of the nearby library and lightning cascades about, summoning the dragon once again. Vimes obviously theorizes accurately that magic seems to be what keeps the dragon in place. Something had been feeding the dragon to keep it alive, and now it seems to have learned how to maintain its own form without the need for anyone else's help. Errol, very bravely, as the hero of this story, distracts the dragon for a bit in order to help Sybil and Vimes escape, but is eventually knocked out of the sky, and Vimes has to rescue him so that he doesn't drop onto the ground, because, after all, dragons do explode. The great dragon actually goes on to incinerate the cult who had created it, or summoned it, I think. Yeah, it's a bit confusing here, at least for me, what the exact terminology I would use here is, but the cult that had summoned the dragon here, the dragon goes on to incinerate it. All the members, except for one guy whom Vimes found, because this is the guy that the cult always sends out to get the pizza. Sorry, I really love that scene. Oh, I'll collect myself. I made it through my first try on that one, which is really good. I'm pretty sure I made it through. I'm going to keep that take, so it's so stupid. Okay. Vimes takes Carrot with him to the palace, which now belongs to the Usurper King. Kind of. I mean, the Usurper King hasn't been coronated yet, and so he isn't technically king, but he is going to be crowned soon. Vimes takes Carrot there. Carrot beats up the palace guards who are not going to let them in, and Vimes proceeds inside to talk to the secretary. What's his official title? Vimes goes in to talk to Wance, tries to tell him about the dragon that has come back and that the dragon is still there. It has not, in fact, been slain. The guy who was going to be crowned should not be crowned because he did not actually slay this dragon. Like, we still have this problem. And Wance tells him that he's probably just burned out and imagining things, and Vimes falls asleep in the chair right then and there. That's one of those scenes where you kind of start to get the idea of the kind of person that Vimes is and what he's actually going through. At the coronation, Vimes is told by Wance to hand over his badge in yet another classic trope. And Vimes does so. Vimes loses the job that he has, the job that he loves, and the job that is everything to him. Terry Pratchett really communicates very well to us at this point that that job really was the only thing that Vimes really had going on, and that he is now giving up kind of mentally. It only lasts for a split second. To me, this makes me think of like Spider-Man 2, when Spider-Man briefly stops caring about the city, but then he quickly goes back to trying to care about things again and trying to save everyone. Meanwhile, the other members of the Watch that Vimes was formerly a part of are looking out for the dragon. They're sitting on a rooftop trying to find it, and it turns out they're not all that great at their jobs because they are literally on top of the dragon, which then takes off and assaults the coronation, eats people, burns them, does its dragon thing, and in the process is accidentally crowned king. Yeah, that's the direction that this story takes at this point. It is a very interesting turn and twist that I wouldn't say you could really see coming, at least even knowing how Terry Pratchett writes. I don't know how you could predict that the dragon would be crowned king. The dragon becomes king. Vimes kind of loses his mind here and just starts laughing at how ridiculous this all is, which, yeah, I get it, buddy. Now Ankh has a king, as expected, as was going to happen at the coronation, but the king is in fact the dragon. So now the dragon is the king, and Once is speaking for the dragon. The dragon has Once bring all of the guild leaders into the palace, which is now the dragon's palace, and inform them that they are now going to be paying essentially a special tax to him, and also all of the people will be paying a special tax to him, and also pretty soon all of the allies of the city-state will be paying a special tax to them. Essentially, the dragon is growing its horde. It actually wants to do it very aggressively, and Once is trying to caution the dragon against that and trying to caution it to do it a little more democratically. So Once, who it turns out is the cult leader who summoned this dragon in the first place, is actually not having a very great time with the new king that he has summoned and put in place. Meanwhile, members of the City Watch, sans Vimes, are trying to figure out the right way to kill a dragon. See, the thing is, it's all about hitting it in the vulnerable spots. They must have played a lot of Zelda at some point and got used to hitting the weak points there, although they didn't really know how to identify the vulnerable spots. And the thing is, it's always the gigantic eyeball that's somewhere on the creature's body. A pretty amusing scene occurs here, another one that I really like, wherein they realize that they have like not 1,000,000 to 1 odds. It's actually more likely than that. And no one's ever heard of, I think it's like 100 to 1 odds succeeding. So they need to get it to 1,000,000 to 1 odds in order to actually stand a chance of succeeding. So they start doing things like suggesting maybe they could stand on 1 foot and try to get it to 1,000,000 to 1 odds and do all these other things. They just keep trying to do things to decrease their odds of success in order to get to 1,000,000 to 1 odds in order to make the shot successful. It's very ridiculous. It goes on for a while. It's a fantastic scene, great dialogue that really gives us, again, just more insight into these characters. While all of this silliness is going on, Sybil Ramkin is taken to be the virgin sacrifice to the dragon that must occur once per month now. So, not quite as silly. Sergeant Cullen fires the arrow at where he thinks the dragon's vulnerable spot might be, although he hasn't really even bothered to figure out where it is. I guess, again, they didn't play enough Zelda to know that it's always the gigantic eyeball. Obviously, the arrow does not hit a vulnerable spot, and the dragon fires a fireball in their direction. And the Watch is dead. Actually, they're not. Vimes goes to rescue Sybil Ramkin from her chains, and the City Watch, having survived the fire blast, goes to join up with Vimes. And then one of the most interesting dragon fights that I have seen in fiction takes place between Errol, the little dragon that Vimes adopted, and the tremendous dragon that has been terrorizing Ankh-Morpork and became king. I don't know how to describe it. It's this tiny little dragon that's flying by like using bouts of flame to like move in different directions and such, and gas and all of that, shooting around in different directions, and there's this gigantic dragon. It seems really unlikely that the little dragon is going to win, like 1,000,000 to 1 odds, and then the little dragon does win. The little dragon defeats the big one, and then Carrot arrests it. While Carrot is arresting the big dragon, a city mob approaches and tries to kill it while it is subdued and it has all this rubble on top of it. It can't do anything. It's weak and broken. The mob comes up and tries to kill the dragon themselves while Carrot is trying to arrest it. And at this point, the City Watch steps in, as well as Sybil, and moves to prevent them from murdering the dragon at that point. Later on, Once is killed when Carrot is told by Vimes to throw the book at him, because Carrot is, again, raised by dwarves, and so he takes that very literally, throws the book of like code for Ankh-Morpork at Once, and Once falls out the window and dies. It's a pretty fitting end for the man. And then we end with Vimes and Sybil in her home having a lovely little romantic dinner. I guess you don't have to call it romantic, but romance is blossoming, though that is something we can explore in later books. And that is Guards. Now it's time for discussion about Guards. We're going to start with my thoughts, and then we're going to get into your thoughts on the book. There's a lot to talk about in this book, despite how short and sweet and simple and silly that book sounded. First of all, throughout Guards, commentary is made on the nature of humans and how complacent they are and how quick they are to just accept things as opposed to resist them or fight against what is wrong. Throughout Guards, there is commentary on the way that humans just kind of accept things, the way that humans have a tendency to just kind of see a blue box on the street and walk past it. And I say we as in the royal we. In general, humans overall are very complacent and want to continue to be complacent and don't want to disrupt themselves if they don't have to. I want to think for a moment about how utterly insane this novel actually is. And I don't want to apply too much realism to this, but again, the beauty of absurdism and why I love absurdism, and part of why Terry Pratchett is my favorite author, is that absurdism is a way for us to reflect on our own reality. Absurdism takes problems in our real world, makes them a little more ridiculous so that they're a bit easier to digest, and then allows us to apply those things back to our real world after we've digested the slightly more ridiculous versions of them. So let's look at how insane this novel actually is. We kick off with our kind of corrupt or really corrupt city-state that is led by Lord Vetinari. I don't think he's a good guy, but I don't think he's some horrible evil villain. I think he does want his city to thrive and survive. He is usurped because an evil cult summons a horrible dragon and has somebody poof it out of existence. And then at the coronation, where this guy who is going to become king would be crowned, the dragon eats him and is crowned king instead. And now that dragon is going to be king. This dragon who was incinerating, burning, and murdering people all over the city. This dragon who was doing horrible things that everyone knew about and everyone wanted to see destroyed. There was a reward out for this dragon's head. And now the dragon is crowned king and is sitting in the palace and is going to be dictating rules to everyone, is determining that everyone is going to be taxed, has all of the guild masters coming in for council meetings to tell them what their taxes are going to be. I want you to really think about how absolutely insane that actually is and how quickly that all progressed for these people. Again, it is absurd, but that's the point of what absurdism is. It is a way for us to absurdly look at our real world so that we can then remove the absurdism and pull it back to reality. So that's how insane this novel is. All the way through that, the people accept what's happening to them. The other thing that the humans have a tendency to do, and something that we also do in real life, unfortunately, is when there is a very big, serious problem, they try to pretend like they're wanting to solve it and act like they're going to solve it, but they actually go for something that is not really the problem, but that just looks like it could be the problem so they can say that they're making an effort. The first example that comes to mind for this is early on when the dragon is first attacking the city. A mob comes not to slay the dragon, but to Sybil Ramkin's house to kill her tiny dragons and potentially her. She must be responsible. Killing the big dragon would be very difficult. It would be too hard, and it would probably get some of them hurt. But you know what they could probably do is kill all the little dragons and maybe this lady that no one really likes and thinks is kind of weird. And so an angry mob goes to her house and wants to just kind of get rid of her, and they think that this might do it, and if it doesn't, well, I can say that I did my best, I tried, I made an effort. Basically what they're doing is they're looking for a scapegoat that makes it as easy as possible for them to say that they are a saint. We interestingly see this happen again when the dragon is taken down by Errol and is going to be placed under arrest because the dragon is now vulnerable or vulnerable. The people suddenly are interested in killing it again. This is after they have accepted that the dragon is king and are willing to pay taxes to it, were willing to have Sybil Ramkin be sacrificed to it, and they reasoned that away and they said, well, it's just one woman a month. That's probably not too bad, is it? All of a sudden, the dragon is no longer a threat. It is crushed under rubble, and now they're all gonna come and slay the dragon. Because now they can do that without any risk to themselves. Now it doesn't require sacrifice. Now it doesn't require effort to do it. And they can feel good about themselves and put their head on their pillow at night and think, yeah, I did something. These aren't people who are actually bold or passionate. These aren't people who really love their city or their fellow countrymen or anything like that. These are just people who are dumb and violent and are looking for something they can do that poses as little risk as possible to themselves, while allowing them to pat themselves on the back for trying. So let's take that back to the real world. We as humans also have a tendency to just accept the things that are easy. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I am some revolutionary. I am impressed and amazed by the people who are. It was only 250 years ago that we didn't want to pay taxes on tea, and so we threw a whole bunch of it into the harbor. This we is like a few of us, those of us who are, 270-ish years old or so. Almost immediately after that, there was a temporary tax instated to help with the war effort, the personal income tax, and everyone just kind of allowed it to happen. And then it stayed, even though it was supposed to be temporary, and then it just kept growing. And they didn't fight that. They didn't throw anything into the harbor over that. And people aren't throwing things into the harbor now. They've just accepted it. And it's still here. There are, of course, a number of reasons for this, and this could be a whole other discussion in and of itself, like the discussion of why have we become more complacent and why are we less willing to take action against things that we believe to be wrong. Things like the fact that it is way more dangerous for civilians now to take action against things, or it is way more dangerous for civilians now to, I don't know, throw tea into harbor. You are taking on a great deal more risk when you decide to protest now. With all of that in mind though, let's look again for a moment at what happened with Sybil Ramkin. The people did not like that there was a dragon flying around and destroying things. The people did not like there was a dragon flying around eating people or burning things, burning them, doing all these horrible things. They did not want, however, to go up against the dragon, so they picked Sybil Ramkin and they blamed her instead. That was much easier. She was a really easy scapegoat. She's something manageable that they can blame. She's something easy for them to point at and say, this is probably what our problem is. Why don't we try to fix this? And we can pat ourselves on the back and say that we tried. If I go much farther into this part of the discussion though, I fear it's going to turn into grandstanding. So I'll just say, keep an eye out for the TL Bainter 2033 presidential run. Complacency manifests in a number of ways. And it's really easy to look for scapegoats that make it simple to say, I tried, even though you didn't actually do anything. And the real problem is staring you in the face, and the real solution is right in front of you. But it's hard because we're talking about guards, and this is a citywide issue. And so those are the examples I picked were like issues of government and city and society. There could be other problems that you're facing in your life that are more personal to you. And maybe you're looking at scapegoats instead of looking at the real issue and the actual dragon, and you're looking at the Sybil Ramkin instead, and you're saying, hey, why don't I just go and form an angry mob of me's outside Sybil Ramkin's house instead of actually taking on the dragon, because taking on the dragon is hard. Stop trying to live your complacent and easy life and take down the dragon, because you're not going to get anywhere if you just keep screaming at Sybil Ramkin. It's time to talk about law enforcement, because I haven't had enough controversial topics yet, have I? Oh boy. I'm not somebody who likes cop dramas or shows. Most of them fall under propaganda. They are indoctrination, trying to tell you a number of things about the way that a cop's life is, about the way that the job is, about what the cops do and what they're supposed to do and what they should be allowed to do and how you as a civilian should act around them, even though you actually have the right to act a completely different way around them. It's a complete mess. Brooklyn Nine-Nine even was a show that took me a long time to get into, and I still don't like a couple of the earlier seasons because it just took so long for the show to really get its footing and start being honest about the way that policing actually works. And more importantly, start showing the way that policing should work, which is what I think the responsibility of cop shows should be if there are going to be cop shows, but that is a whole other thing. So Guards should fall into the category of stories I struggle to like. I think that he completely avoids making it propaganda and instead shows you the nitty-gritty of what law enforcement should be and how it should feel to a degree. Obviously, again, it is an absurdist take on that, but he still does a really good job of showing you someone who loves his city and loves the people in it, even though the people in the city are complete morons. My favorite thing about Sam Vimes in this book specifically is that Sam Vimes is fantastic at de-escalating a situation without shooting a civilian. Should I say that? Without hurting civilians, even if that civilian is being an idiot. Even if I personally would probably want to punch that civilian in the face, Sam Vimes just de-escalates the situation. The best example of this is, as I was talking about just a few minutes ago, the Sybil Ramkin incident where Sam Vimes is there with her and an angry mob shows up to her house because they want to blame her instead of the dragon. Sam Vimes does not kill all of them. He kind of threatens to with the dragon. He indicates like, hey, this dragon, it could incinerate all of you. Why don't you all disperse or something to that effect? And they all leave. He finds what they're afraid of, finds a way to get them all to go away without actually having to harm any of them or without really posing too much of a risk to them. And they leave. He de-escalates it, which is what a cop should do. They should be de-escalating the situations. On top of that, Sam Vimes is really accessible. We see more of this later on with people just kind of walking up and talking to him. Other members of the Watch are accessible. They're just kind of going about patrolling and walking around. They're very public. Like the Watch feels like it is associated with the city and it is in the city as opposed to just kind of sitting around waiting for civilians to do something wrong so that they can hurt them or hurt their lives. They are part of the city because they love the city, and you can tell for sure that Sam Vimes loves the city and the people in it. Again, even though they're dumb. The people on the Watch go to tremendous lengths to get this city that they love back from the dragon. Sam Vimes loves his city, and to me that's like one of the essential things about being a police officer. I live outside of Kansas City, or just outside of it. We are the only city that has a police force that is state controlled rather than city controlled, and the state has a vested interest in making sure that our police force sucks. So the police here don't love the city. In fact, several of them have made points of just hating it. We wound up on John Oliver once where the police were beating and pepper spraying protesters, which is great. I know what it's like to be in a city where the cops do not like the city and do not love the city and don't love the people in it. I think a really interesting distinction here in Guards is that while the people of Ankh-Morpork are complacent, the City Watch is not. They are constantly trying to go after the oppressor and trying to push back against it and restore the city to normal, even when the people don't want it anymore. Even when the people go, I guess this is the way that it is. I guess we're sacrificing women now. I guess that we're all just paying a lot more money in taxes now. I guess that we're also taxing all of our allies at this point. I guess all of the guilds are also paying exorbitant taxes now. I guess we have a dragon for a king who burns us alive sometimes. They're all willing to accept it, and it's the City Watch who says, no, I'm gonna protect you even though you are somehow okay with the fact that you are being abused. I'm going to stand up for you. That's really good. This is the kind of propaganda I can get behind. Maybe police officers in the real world could learn a thing or two from Sam Vimes. One more thing here before we dive into your thoughts on Guards. This is the really, really fun one that I'm sure you are really excited about. So systems of government. There is no such thing as a system of government that Ankh-Morpork is running under in the Discworld. It's completely made up. It's an interesting mix of a couple of them, and then it becomes a monarchy again. So we're going to talk about the current system of government that Ankh-Morpork has, then what it becomes, and then also how the people justify the fact that they are going back to a monarchy when they previously had a better system than that. Even though, again, I don't understand what the system before the monarchy was. I just know it was not a monarchy, therefore it was definitely better. America. Terry Pratchett was from England, so he has quite a lot to say about monarchies. I have a lot to say about monarchies as well, but I'm from America, so I say them while I'm shooting a gun in the air and eating a taco and an eagle screeches in the distance and the American flag blows behind me. I'm not actually all that patriotic. I don't get the impression that Terry Pratchett hates monarchies, particularly given that he was knighted. He's Sir Terry Pratchett. However, he definitely does not like the way that power is transferred in monarchies. That much to me is very clear. Power being transferred through blood is not a good system of government, and that is mocked in this book. Not explicitly, at least to my recollection, but he does just kind of mock the way that power is transferred and how ridiculous these different ways that power is transferred and people are elected or lack thereof into power. Terry Pratchett does share his thoughts on monarchies a little bit in Jingo, which we're a good ways off from, I think, in which he says, the great city of Genua had run out of royalty, inbreeding having progressed to the point where the sole remaining example consisted mostly of teeth. Truthfully, I can't find any real world examples of the system of government that Terry Pratchett uses in Ankh-Morpork. It seems to be a blend of a couple of different kinds. For one, it's ruled by a patrician who is the head of an aristocratic family. And then there's also the guild leaders that he kind of seems to, I wouldn't say that he relies on or even really gives them a great deal of power, but he kind of allows them to have power and sit on something similar to a council, almost like a parliament. But Vetinari rules Ankh-Morpork as an uncontested aristocrat. He never has to be re-elected. So he's kind of a king. But not really. And he kind of shares power, but not really. And the power is shared with these various guild leaders, which kind of makes me think like oligarchy-ish or mercantocracy, mercantilism? Is that what it's called? Anyway, I'm gonna call this a patricianocracy, which is gonna be really fun for me to say for the rest of this, but I wasn't pronouncing it when I typed it out. So yeah, patricianocracy, or something to that effect. Oh, I did type out here that it is a bit of a mouthful, but I still kept that. Cool. Thanks, me. Vetinari maintains a very delicate balance here in Ankh-Morpork with his patricianocracy and all of the guild leaders. He allows the Thieves Guild to steal a little bit. He allows the Assassins Guild to do the things that they need to do. He lets these things happen in order to allow the city to operate the way that it does. And the city mostly functions pretty well. And the people have lived pretty well. Overall, things have been good under Vetinari. In waltzes the dragon, starts causing a whole bunch of problems for the people. The people get upset. A guy slays the dragon, says, I'm your new king. That's it, now he's king. The fact that this guy has no relevant experience, no one knows who he is, he should not be doing this, but he happened to meet the ridiculous requirement that was set out for him, now rules over Ankh-Morpork, is insane. He then goes a step further, and because the dragon gets the crown during the coronation, the dragon gets to become king. Also ridiculous, a completely ridiculous and absurd way to transfer power. The next thing I want to talk about, though, kind of goes back to human complacency, but also is just the fact that the humans kind of accept their new ruler and justify it in some of the most ridiculous ways. So I'm going to be reading a section from Guards here. It's on page 164 of my book if you want to read along with me. I have kind of cut some things out, so I'm going to read on the paper just because I want to keep it fast.
It's all gone mad,
Vimes shouted.
Kings of Ankh and thrones, are there?
What? Oh yes, there used to be, said Lady Ramkin, hundreds of years ago. Why?
Some kid says that he's heir to the throne.
That's right,
said Throat. He made a big speech about how he was going to kill the dragon, overthrow the usurpers, right or wrongs. Everyone cheered. Everyone cheers any speech in the city, growled Vimes. It doesn't mean anything.
Could be good for business, could monarchy,
said Throat. What wrongs? Said Vimes urgently. Come on, tell me. What wrongs is he going to right?
Well,
said Throat.
There's, taxes. That's wrong for a start.
That's right, said an old woman next to him. And the gutter of my house leaks something dreadful, and the landlord won't do nothing. That's wrong. And premature baldness, said the man in front of her. That's wrong too. Ah, kings can cure that, you know, said another proto-monarchist knowingly. And they can't answer back, you know. That's how you can tell they're royal, completely incapable of it. It's to do with being gracious. Fancy, said the leaky guttering woman.
It's a fire-breathing dragon, screamed Vimes. And he's just a guy on a horse, for heaven's sake.
The people Vimes is talking to seem to not only have accepted that a new monarchy is inevitable, but have also talked themselves into believing that this new monarchy is going to solve all of their problems somehow. This new guy is going to come in, slay this dragon, and fix their leaky gutter, end premature baldness, and let's see, decrease grocery prices, solve all the drug crime in Ankh-Morpork. Once this monarch is crowned, it could probably do just about anything that it wanted to. In typical Terry Pratchett fashion, he has these people list out a litany of problems that are completely unsolvable by a monarchy. Not that far removed from reality. This was a very timely read along. I did not actually plan this. People in the real world have a tendency to assign ability and power to leaders that they just do not have. They will either blame them for failures that are not theirs, or thank them for successes that are not theirs, or think that the things that they are promising them are actually things that they can do. They think, oh, this person promised me that they can lower my grocery prices, so they are definitely going to. This person promised me that there are not going to be any more drugs in my city, therefore there are not going to be any more drugs in my city. This person promised me that there are going to be a billion new jobs in my country, so that must be true. People like to attribute these things, I think, in part because they really want it to be true. You want to believe that someone else is going to be able to solve these problems for you because, again, one, human complacency, as I talked about. You don't want to solve them yourself. You want someone else to do it for you, or you just want the problem to go away somehow. And two, it would just be really nice to think that the person in power isn't just leeching off of you. They're actually gonna do something that will help you. Since the pandemic in 2020, we have been unseating incumbents across the world. We just did it in the United States. The reason why people do that is not based in logic. It is not based in any sort of understanding of how the world works, how the economy works, or any of that. People look at how they are doing right now. They drive to the election office and they look at the gas prices now and they think, well, 4 years ago when the other team was leading, things were a little better. Therefore, I want the other team to lead again. And that is just not how the world works. The leaders do have control over some of it. Absolutely. They can definitely make some things worse and they can definitely make some things better. But ultimately, they don't have as much control as everybody says that they do. But again, everyone wants a really simple and straightforward solution. And across the world, we have been pursuing the really straightforward and simple solution of unseating incumbents and saying, that should do it. People forget that there are factors outside of the control of leadership that determine whether or not their life is good or bad. You cannot blame the people who are leading for everything. You cannot blame the people who are leading for going bald prematurely. I love absurdism. I love the way that it makes topics that can be difficult to digest or think about a little easier on you to wrap your head around and really ponder. Very poignant. And now that I am ready to shut up, it's time to get to your thoughts on Guards. Ugh. Sorry, I'm not exasperated by your thoughts on Guards yet. I just need to take a breath. That was a lot of yapping. Oh, hey, the next line is, all right, that was a lot of yapping from me. That's true. If you do not know, I put a discussion post up for the next book on the community tab. That is where you can go and first of all, rate the next book that we are reading in the Discworld read along and then share your thoughts on it. I usually put that up about 1 to 2 months after the discussion video for the previous book goes up. So in about 2 months, you will see the one for the next book go up and then you can share your thoughts. And then a couple of months later, I will compile all of those and make another video sharing your thoughts and mine and basically just another one of these and we continue the cycle from there. I gave Guards 5 stars. Fantastic book. Especially even better when I read it from the perspective that I have just shared with you and took the things from the absurdism of it that I have just shared with you. I loved this book. It was a fantastic one. It really showed you what Discworld is going to be going forward. And most of you also gave this book 5 stars, which I think is the first time we've had such a almost clean sweep for so many votes. And we also then had 25% at 4 stars, and then we had 4% at 3 stars. Really awesome. Everyone seems to have really enjoyed it. If you did give it 3 stars, I'm curious as to why you felt like Guards was average and what else you are comparing it to. I guess if I compared it to all the rest of Discworld, I might think a little bit less of it, but I still feel like I'd give it 5 stars just because it is an awesome Discworld book regardless. I mean, if you still feel like it's average and you're just comparing it and there's just some that really blow you away and that you really love, I'm curious about that. Nobody really shared negative thoughts or significantly negative thoughts about it, or that they felt like the book was average. So if you were one of those people and you were watching this, I am curious as to what your thoughts were on why it was average. So I'm not hating your vote. I just want to talk. I'm back. I know I look the same, but again, not the same clothes. I just have a lot of the same outfit. I'm gonna read your comments. Sassy Susie for you says, Guards is one of my favorites. I love the character arc of Vimes. He is good and cares about people deep down, but years of fighting the system has just worn him down, so he has to self-medicate to survive. This book shows it isn't too late to be rallied and see there are good things that are still worth fighting for. I really love Vimes' character arc, and that is one of the things that made me want to talk so much about Vimes and had to reel myself back in quite a bit. I'm tempted to even respond to this with another essay about Vimes that I'm avoiding talking about now. But yes, I love Vimes' character arc, not just in Guards, because I feel like we are more just introduced to Vimes in this, and it's a really solid introduction to Vimes and all of his flaws and the issues that he has. But as far as character growth, I feel like the main character growth that we get from him is more toward the end, where we see a couple of things. One, he asks for more money for his job. At the very end of the book, he asks the Patrician to pay more money for the role, which we're given the impression he has not asked for in the past. He hasn't asked for new equipment or anything like that, which really gives the impression that he's done the job because he knew it needed doing and he loved the city. Which we also see prior to that, where he continued to do the work and continued to save the city even after he had relinquished his badge to Wants. The other bit of character growth that we see from him is at the very end of the book when he is having dinner with Sybil Ramkin. That doesn't feel like character growth, but it is. We do see a little bit of growth, but it's baby steps for Vimes, which is exactly what we need. Got H4598 says, Guards is great. Most of that greatness comes from the characters themselves, I think. They're also memorable and have a great dynamic. Yes, Guards has an incredible cast of characters. And in fact, this whole City Watch collection itself has a great cast, and it continues to grow a little bit, and all of the characters really stand out. They have unique voices, and you really enjoy the conversations that they have and the dynamics they have. Long conversations with each of these characters don't feel like they're drawn out and don't feel like they go on for too long, at least. I think characters might well be the strongest aspect of any book in the City Watch collection, because this whole cast of Guards in the City Watch is so incredible through and through, and we are going to continue to follow these characters as we proceed through these books. I actually started not the entirety of Discworld, but the adult books with Thud, and that one also starts introducing some new elements to the City Watch. So we're not only going to continue to enjoy these awesome characters, but Terry Pratchett is going to add more members of the City Watch who are just going to continue to get more and more interesting. So the cast is, I think, what makes a lot of people really enjoy and remember what made the City Watch so fantastic. Wolverine, pretty sure I'm saying it right. I know that it's spelled not Wolverine. Wolverine says, I love comparing Discworld to the MCU, and this one is the first that feels like an Avengers, in that it has many elements from the previous books combined along with the lots of new, some wizards, the librarian, the patrician, dragons, dwarves, the city, it's a wasp name, and death. All the Watch books get progressively better as they go till near the end. So I find it hard to pick favorites, but it's iconic in the way the others aren't, if only for that Kirby cover with the 4 of them cowering beneath the flames. I will put that cover on screen now, future me. Sorry, I'm giving you more work to do, but honestly, all of the Guards covers that I've seen are fantastic. I am personally pretty partial to this one, but there's also a really cool purple and black special edition one that I've seen that is really awesome. The classic Kirby cover is also really cool, and I think captures the vibe of Guards. I really like seeing crossover characters from previous Discworld novels show up. I remember my first recognition of that moment, I am pretty sure, was when I read either Wintersmith or A Hatful of Sky. My first foray into Discworld itself was when I was a teenager, so I was reading the Tiffany Aching series. It's whichever one Sam Vimes shows up in, which I'm pretty sure he shows up in A Hatful of Sky. I had read Thud at that point, and I was going back to read that one because I think it had just come out. Maybe it was I Shall Wear Midnight. That was my first moment of, oh, that's the character from the adult book that I read, and he's showing up here. And that was kind of my moment of, oh, so all of these characters can just kind of appear and their stories can interconnect and interweave. And it's not just like the background characters can show up in main character stories. The main characters will also pop in here and there. Obviously, it's only going to get better from here. The librarian, I think, has appeared the most at this point, other than Death, obviously, who is in virtually every single book. I'm pretty sure Death is in every book. I'll correct myself if I'm wrong. I'll look it up. But I'm pretty sure Death appears in every single Discworld book. Dominique says, I love this book. My favorite character is Angua. Angua is fantastic. There's not a member of the Watch that I don't like. I'm going to be basic and say that my favorite character is Vimes, if only because of some of the relatability, which are elements that I don't want to spoil for the character of Vimes, although you can pick up on some of those aspects both from here and then if you know me at all or follow my personal Instagram, I think I talk about some of the stuff that, like, my own past, I have struggled with some things that are similar to Vimes. So he's my personal favorite. Angua hasn't shown up yet. I think she shows up in the next book or the third one. Angua shows up in the next book of the City Watch collection, so we will get to meet her next. Sarsoup says, I loved Guards. I'm seeing a pattern here. I loved Guards. I think this has to be my favorite Discworld book so far. For context, I'm on my first read-through going in release order. Hey, welcome. I think what did it for me was the characters, especially when compared to the previous book. Yeah. Again, sensing a pattern here. People really love the characters here. They really resonate. They're super well written and very memorable and distinct from one another. Although I liked Pyramids, none of the characters really resonated with me like they did in Guards. It's hard to explain, but this book just felt so distinctly Discworld to me, more so than some of the previous. First of all, thank you for joining me for the chronological read-along. I'm glad that you're here. Getting to this point in a chronological read-along, this is definitely a good representation of where Discworld is going. Discworld really feels a lot more like this book than it does the previous books. I also enjoyed Pyramids. Pyramids historically had been one of my favorites. Guards, I can always pull something away from and I can always enjoy. It is a fantastic read and you can knock it out in a day just because of how quickly it goes by when you are sitting down and enjoying this book. Guards is fantastic and is absolutely a perfect example of what the Terry Pratchett Discworld collection is like. Before I get to this one, I'm just going to say that I am going to be condensing what Amy said here, but I will put the entire comment up on screen, and I would also encourage you to go and read it in your own leisure because Amy put some fantastic thoughts up there. Go check out the discussion post and check out her comment there. I always appreciate everything that Amy has to say here in the discussion videos. I read Guards and tried to frame our country's current political situation in context of the book. A power-hungry civil servant led a group of working-class men who felt disempowered and oppressed by the system. They conspired to overthrow the Patrician's dictatorship rule of the city-state of Ankh-Morpork. The dragon killed all but 2 men in the group who summoned it. The dragon killed the hero/king. The guild presidents and wealthy citizens of Ankh-Morpork allowed the dragon to take over the city-state and appoint itself king. The Dragon King's new privy councilors were desirous of the power the dragon could wield and fear the dragon could inspire in neighboring city-states and the control they could have over the region. Very quickly, the leaders were willing to go along with the Dragon King's demands. That's where we're at politically in America, offering up people to feed the Dragon King so it doesn't destroy everyone and everything. In any other story, the dragon would have been slain or the dragon would have destroyed everyone and everything. The power-hungry civil servant was defeated by the book and rule of law, literally. We learned from Sybil Ramkin the power of curiosity and compassion. In this way, she's very much like the Doctor when he encounters new aliens and monsters in Doctor Who. We learn from the librarian to listen to those who have different perspectives but have the same motivations and might become unexpected allies. We also learn from Sam Vimes and Carrot Iron Founderson and Fred and Nobby, reluctantly, that the police could overcome their corruption and apathy and actually do good without killing people. A good chunk of this I already touched on in my part of the discussion, so I'm not going to reiterate all of that, but I do want to touch on the last paragraph, everything that you pulled from the book and what the characters experience and go through and what they say and do. Especially Sybil Ramkin, who was trying to find a non-violent solution very early on. She was approaching the dragon and trying to reach out to it. The comparison of the doctor is excellent, very much trying to approach this being in a manner that was not just, how do I kill this thing so that it doesn't kill me first? Perfect. And I think that we got the impression she would have succeeded if she hadn't been distracted or other elements hadn't been at play. The whole situation may have been avoided if she had been able to do what she needed to without outside forces getting in the way. But because she failed, other solutions did need to be pursued. And then we had, as you said, instead of this big hero slaying the dragon or something of that nature, we had this tiny little underdog dragon with 1,000,000 to 1 odds of success taking down the big dragon so that the dragon could be arrested. Very unusual ending. And I talked about a lot of those parallels and the way that we can use absurdism to elevate the problems that we're facing in the real world to then look at the real world again through those new lenses that the absurdist story has given to us. As always, I greatly appreciate your comments. I love reading them. Comments like this are absolutely the reason why I started doing this and why I continue to do this, is because I want to read other people's thoughts on this. Whether they agree with me on all of my takeaways or not, I want to know what other people think and what they pull away from books like this. I think that's the last comment, actually. If you did not have a chance to comment on any of the discussion posts that I put up for Guards, you are totally free to do so now. I read as many of the comments as I possibly can, which is usually all of them. And so if you have anything you want to say, or if you want to add to the discussion, if anything that I've said here warrants a response from you, I am more than happy to continue this discussion about Guards with you. As always, thank you so much to everybody who is participating in this read along and participated in the discussion for this book, Guards. This is the 8th book in our chronological read along, which means that we are moving on to the 9th one, which, as you can tell, is quite short. This is Eric. It is probably going to take you like an hour, probably a little more, maybe. I don't know how fast you read. Eric, that's our next one. So if you didn't get a chance to participate in the Guards discussion, but you are wanting to talk about Eric, this is your chance. So go ahead, read Eric. If you do not have a copy of it, I will, as always, have links down in the description where you can get it. If you do buy through those links, it gives me a couple of cents, which I could use some common sense. So I would appreciate that if you do get them that way. The discussion post for Eric will probably go up in about 3-ish months. I would say March is probably a reasonable expectation for when the post will go up on my community tab, and then the video will go up a few months after that. Yeah. So if you're sitting here thinking, oh goodness, I don't know if I can read 129 pages. That's roughly a page a day before the discussion post would go up. Maybe a little bit more. Again, thank you so much for your participation and for watching me ramble, or listening to me ramble, I guess. You probably watched me ramble as well. Actually, this is probably more of a background video, isn't it? At a certain point and at a certain length, I become a background video. All right. Bye.